unlimited drama series.
My name is Nick Halprin, and I've spent the last 20 years of my life believing that loyalty meant something. Turns out, I was about as wrong as a man can be without actually dying from stupidity. It started on a Tuesday morning in March, the kind of gray, soul-crushing day that makes you wonder why anyone ever moved to Ohio in the first place. I was under the hood of a 2019 BMW, detailing the engine bay for some lawyer who probably made more in a day than I see in a month, when my phone buzzed with a text that would change everything. The message was from my wife, Renee. Having dinner with Eric and the girls tonight. Don't wait up. Nothing unusual there. Renee had been spending more time with her salon friends lately, ever since she'd expanded her nail business into that fancy new location downtown. Eric Sloan, my best friend since high school, had been tagging along to these social gatherings more often too. I figured he was just trying to network. Car salesmen are always looking for new connections. But something about the timing felt off. This was the third dinner this week, and it was only Tuesday. I finished up the BMW and headed home to our modest two-story house on Maple Street. The place looked the same as always. White siding that needed a fresh coat of paint, small front yard with the oak tree we'd planted on our 10th anniversary. But walking through the front door felt different somehow, like coming home to a house that wasn't quite yours anymore. Renee was in the bedroom getting ready. She'd laid out her black dress, the expensive one she usually saved for special occasions, and was applying makeup with the kind of precision that suggested this wasn't just dinner with friends. "You look nice," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "Where are you guys going?" "That new Italian place on 5th Street," she replied without looking at me. "Lila says their wine selection is amazing." Lila Martinez was Renee's business partner, a woman who collected gossip like some people collect stamps. If Lila was involved, there would definitely be drama before the night was over. "Eric's really become a regular at these things," I observed, trying to keep my tone casual. Renee's hand paused for just a fraction of a second as she applied her lipstick. "He's good company, and he knows a lot of people who might be interested in our services." "Right, business networking." She turned to face me then, and I caught something in her expression. A flicker of guilt, maybe, or irritation. "Is there a problem, Nick?" "No problem. Just seems like you're spending a lot of time away from home lately." "I'm building a business. I thought you'd be proud of that." "I am proud. I'm just saying—" "You're just saying what exactly?" Her voice had an edge now, the kind of sharpness that meant this conversation was about to go somewhere I didn't want it to go. I held up my hands in surrender. "Nothing. Have fun tonight." She softened slightly, came over and kissed my cheek. "I'll try not to be too late." After she left, I cracked open a beer and settled into my recliner to watch the game. But I couldn't concentrate on the action. Something was eating at me, a nagging feeling that I was missing something important. Around 10:30, I decided to drive over to Flanagan's, the neighborhood bar where I'd been drinking since I turned 21. The place hadn't changed much in 2 decades. Same scarred wooden bar, same neon beer signs, same smell of cigarettes that had soaked into the walls back when people could still smoke indoors. Lana Morrison was working behind the bar, as usual. She was 30, attractive in a no-nonsense way, and she knew more about what was happening in our neighborhood than the police, the mayor, and the local newspaper combined. "Nick," she called out when she saw me, "what brings you out on a Tuesday night? Thought you'd be home watching the game." "Renee's out with her crew again. Figured I'd come see how the other half lives." Lana poured me a beer without being asked. "Italian place on 5th Street, right?" I looked at her sharply. "How did you know that?" "Honey, I know everything that happens in this town. It's my job." She leaned across the bar, lowering her voice. "But I gotta tell you, Nick, I haven't seen any of Renee's usual crowd tonight. Lila was in here around 8, drinking alone and looking like someone had stolen her puppy." The beer suddenly tasted like cardboard in my mouth. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if your wife is having dinner with the girls, she's doing it without the girls." I stared at her for a long moment, processing this information. Maybe they changed plans. "Maybe." Lana didn't sound convinced. "Or maybe there's something you need to know." Before I could ask what she meant, the door opened and Eric Sloan walked in. My best friend looked like he'd been through a blender. His usually perfect hair was messed up, his shirt was wrinkled, and he had the kind of guilty expression that every married man recognizes. "Nick!" He seemed genuinely surprised to see me. What are you doing here? Having a drink. What's your excuse? Thought you were at dinner. Eric's face went through several different expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, guilt, calculation, and finally resignation. Yeah, about that. We need to talk. Lana suddenly found something very interesting to clean at the other end of the bar. Talk about what? I asked, though I was pretty sure I didn't want to know the answer. Eric slumped onto the stool next to me and ordered a whiskey, a double. This is harder than I thought it would be. What's harder? Look, Nick, you're my best friend. We've known each other since we were kids. I never wanted it to happen this way. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Wanted what to happen? Renee and I, we've been seeing each other for about 3 months now. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat there for a moment, trying to process what he just said. My wife, my best friend. 3 months. You're telling me you've been screwing my wife? It's not like that. Well, it is like that, but it's more than that. We're in love, Nick. Real love. And she's going to leave you. I looked at Eric, really looked at him. This was the guy who'd been my best man at my wedding. The guy I'd lent money to when his car dealership was struggling. The guy I'd called when my dad died because I needed someone who understood. How long have you been planning to tell me? We were going to tell you together, but she chickened out at the last minute. Said she needed more time to figure out how to break it to you gently. Gently? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's considerate of her. Nick, I know you're hurt, but... Hurt? I turned to face him fully. Eric, hurt is what you feel when your team loses the playoffs. This is something else entirely. I know, but maybe this is for the best. You and Renee haven't been happy for a long time. Anyone can see that. Anyone can see that? Who's anyone? How many people know about this? Eric's silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ. How many people? Not many, just a few close friends. I stood up, tossing a 20 on the bar. Well, congratulations, Eric. You've managed to destroy a 20-year marriage and a 25-year friendship in one conversation. That's got to be some kind of record. Nick, wait! But I was already heading for the door. Behind me, I heard Lana's voice. Eric Sloan, you are one sorry piece of work. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with questions and realizations. 3 months. They'd been lying to my face for 3 months. All those dinners, all those business meetings, all those times Renee had come home late with some excuse about client emergencies or inventory problems. The house was still empty when I got there. I sat in my kitchen staring at the refrigerator covered with photos of Renee and me. Our wedding day, vacations, anniversaries. 20 years of history that apparently meant nothing. I was still sitting there when she came home at midnight. Nick? I thought you'd be asleep. She looked beautiful, I had to admit. Flushed and happy in a way I hadn't seen in months. Now I knew why. How was dinner? It was nice. Good food, good wine. She kicked off her heels and started toward the stairs. I'm exhausted. Coming to bed? In a minute. She paused at the bottom of the stairs. Are you okay? You seem upset about something. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd built a life with, the woman who'd been lying to me for 3 months. Renee, is there anything you want to tell me? For a moment, I thought she might confess. Her face went through the same series of expressions I'd seen on Eric's. Guilt, calculation, resignation. But then she smiled. The same smile she'd been giving me for 20 years. No, honey, nothing important. I love you. I love you too, I said automatically. But as I watched her walk upstairs, I realized that love might not be enough anymore, not when it was built on lies. I stayed downstairs for another hour, thinking about what Eric had told me and what I was going to do about it. Because one thing was becoming clear: I wasn't going to just roll over and let them destroy everything I'd worked for. If they wanted a fight, they were going to get one. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in bed next to my cheating wife, staring at the ceiling and planning my next move. Renee slept peacefully beside me, probably dreaming about her new life with Eric. The thought made me sick. By morning, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I needed more information first: evidence, details, leverage. If Renee and Eric thought they could just blow up my life and walk away clean, they were about to learn otherwise. I called in sick to work, something I hadn't done in over 2 years. After Renee left for the salon, I started going through our shared spaces with the thoroughness of a crime scene investigator. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew Renee well enough to guess Glamour 2019, the year she'd opened the salon. I was right on the first try. What I found there made my stomach turn. Emails between Renee and someone named MC that went back 4 months, not 3, like Eric had claimed. The early messages were flirtatious but innocent enough. By February, they'd turned explicit. MC wasn't Eric. "Can't wait to feel your hands on me again," read one message from Renee. "Last night was incredible. I never knew it could be like this." The response: "You deserve so much more than what you have. Let me give you everything you've been missing." I scrolled through dozens of messages, each one more intimate than the last. Whoever MC was, he was promising Renee a life of luxury. Expensive restaurants, weekend getaways, jewelry, things I could never afford on a detailer's salary. But the most damning evidence was in her photo folder. Pictures I'd never seen before. Renee in expensive lingerie, posing in what looked like a hotel room. Renee wearing a diamond necklace that definitely hadn't come from me. And most shocking of all, a photo of her back, showing a small tattoo just above her left hip. My name, Nick, in script letters. She'd gotten that tattoo on our 15th anniversary. Said it was her way of showing the world she belonged to me. Now she was showing it to another man. I printed out the most incriminating emails and photos, then cleared the browser history and closed the laptop. My hands were shaking with rage, but my mind was clear. I had evidence of the affair, but I still didn't know who MC was or how Eric fit into all this. That afternoon, I drove to Flanagan's. Lana was setting up for the evening shift, and the place was empty except for one old-timer nursing a beer in the corner. "Nick," she said when she saw me, "you look like hell. Rough night?" "You could say that. Can we talk?" She poured me a beer and leaned across the bar. "What do you need to know?" "Everything, and I mean everything." Lana glanced around to make sure we weren't being overheard, then spoke in a low voice. "Your wife's been seeing Dr. Matt Caro. He's a plastic surgeon with a practice downtown, rich, married, and from what I hear, he's got a reputation for getting involved with his female clients." "How long have you known?" "About 6 weeks. I saw them together at that wine bar on Market Street. They weren't exactly being subtle." "What about Eric? How does he fit in?" Lana's expression darkened. "That's where it gets interesting. Eric's been telling people that he and Renee are together, making it sound like a big romance, talking about how they're going to get married once she divorces you. But she's not really with Eric. Not romantically, no. But they're definitely working together on something. I've seen them meeting, always in public places, always looking like they're planning something." I took a long drink of beer, trying to process this information. "So, Renee's sleeping with this doctor, but she's letting Eric think they're together? That's how it looks to me. And Eric's been spreading this story around town, making sure everyone knows about the affair. Almost like he wants you to find out. Why would he want that? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" I spent the rest of the afternoon driving around town, thinking about what Lana had told me. By evening, I'd formed a theory. Eric wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was being used by her and this Dr. Caro for something bigger. But what? When I got home, Renee was in the kitchen making dinner like nothing had happened. She was humming to herself, happier than I'd seen her in months. "How was work?" she asked without looking up from the stove. "Fine. How was your day?" "Busy. We had 3 new clients come in. all referrals from existing customers. Business is really picking up. That's great. Any plans tonight? Actually, yes. Eric called and asked if we wanted to have dinner with him tomorrow night. I said yes. I hope that's okay. I studied her face, looking for any sign of guilt or deception. There was none. She was either a better actress than I'd given her credit for, or she genuinely believed she was getting away with this. Sure, I said, that sounds nice. Good. He's been such a good friend to us lately. I think he's lonely since his divorce. Eric had been divorced for 3 years. If he was lonely, it was by choice. Where are we going? That new steakhouse downtown. Eric's treating. Of course he was. Eric was spending money he didn't have, trying to impress a woman who was sleeping with someone else. Under different circumstances, I might have felt sorry for him. The next day, I did something I'd never done before. I hired a private.
She just gave me a massage! That's it!
Remember, I won't be a fool!
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Investigator. His name was John Kellerman, a retired cop who specialized in domestic cases. He was expensive, but I figured my marriage was worth the investment. I need to know everything, I told him. Who she's seeing, where they meet, what they're planning. And I need to know about Eric Sloan, too. Something's not right there. How long has this been going on? John asked. At least 4 months, maybe longer. Any joint assets I should know about? Bank accounts, property, business interests? She owns half the nail salon. We have a joint checking account and savings. The house is in both our names. John nodded, making notes. I'll need a few days to put together a complete picture. In the meantime, don't do anything that might tip them off. Act normal, keep your routine, and whatever you do, don't confront anyone until we know exactly what we're dealing with. What do you think they're after? In my experience, when there's this much deception involved, it's usually about money. Your wife's business, your assets, something valuable enough to make all this lying worthwhile. That evening, we met Eric at the steakhouse. It was one of those places where the cheapest entree cost $50 and the wine list read like a phone book. Eric was already there when we arrived, sitting at a corner table and looking nervous. Nick, Renee, he said, standing to greet us. Thanks for coming. Renee hugged him a little too long, and I caught Eric's expression over her shoulder. He looked confused, almost hurt, like a man who wasn't getting what he'd been promised. This is a nice place, I said, taking my seat. Special occasion? Just wanted to spend time with my 2 favorite people, Eric replied, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. The dinner was surreal. Renee chatted about the salon, Eric talked about car sales, and I sat there knowing that both of them were lying about almost everything. At one point, Renee excused herself to go to the bathroom, and Eric leaned across the table. Nick, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. Shoot. Are you and Renee having problems? I mean, serious problems? I looked at my best friend, my former best friend, and felt a moment of genuine sadness for what we'd lost. Why do you ask? She's been distant lately. When we're together, it's like her mind is somewhere else. And she keeps talking about making changes, big changes, but she won't tell me what she means. Maybe you should ask her. I have. She just says I need to be patient, that everything will work out soon. When Renee returned, she was glowing with excitement. I have an announcement, she said, raising her wine glass. I've been keeping a secret, and I think it's time to share it with the 2 most important men in my life. Eric straightened up, hope flickering in his eyes. I'm expanding the salon again. I've found the perfect location, and I've got an investor who's willing to back the whole project. We're going to be the premier beauty destination in the city. That's wonderful, I said. Who's the investor? Someone who believes in me, someone who sees my potential. Eric's face fell. This clearly wasn't the announcement he'd been hoping for. When does this happen? I asked. Soon, very soon. There are just a few more details to work out. I had a feeling those details involved divorcing me and getting her hands on my half of our assets. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of forced conversation and hidden tensions. When we got home, Renee was practically vibrating with excitement. This is it, Nick. This is our chance to really make something of ourselves. Our chance. Well, my chance. But it'll benefit both of us. You'll see. She went upstairs to take a bath, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I was beginning to understand the scope of what was happening here. Renee wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to completely rebuild her life, and she needed my assets to do it. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. I was done being the loyal, trusting husband. It was time to start fighting back. John Kellerman called me 3 days later with information that made everything clear. Your wife's been meeting with Dr. Matt Caro at least twice a week for the past 4 months, he said. Usually at the Marriott downtown, room 412. He's got it on a monthly rental. What about Eric? That's where it gets interesting. Sloane's been meeting with Caro too, but separately from your wife. They've had lunch 3 times in the past 2 weeks. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. They're all in this together. Looks that way, and there's more. Doctor, Caro's been having financial problems. His practice is heavily in debt, and his wife filed for divorce last month. Word is, she's going after half of everything. So he needs money. Exactly. And your wife's salon has been doing very well lately. But here's the kicker. She's been taking out loans against the business. Big loans. How big? $200,000 in the past 3 months? All of it deposited into a new account that only she has access to. My hands clenched into fists. $200,000. Money that was rightfully half mine, since I'd helped her start the business. There's something else, John continued. Eric Sloane's been telling people around town that he and your wife are planning to get married. But from what I can see, she's stringing him along. My guess is she's using him to provide cover for her relationship with Caro, and maybe to help her access your joint assets. What do you mean? Think about it. If everyone believes she's leaving you for Eric, a guy you've known for 25 years, it looks like a simple case of friends falling in love. Nobody suspects there's a third party involved, and nobody questions why she needs access to money quickly. It was diabolical, and it was brilliant. Renee had created the perfect cover story for her real affair, while positioning herself to steal everything I'd worked for. What's my next move? I asked. That depends on what you want to accomplish. You could file for divorce, try to protect your assets, and hope for the best. Or what? Or you could beat them at their own game. That night, I started planning my revenge. The first step was to protect myself financially. I went to the bank and moved half of our joint savings into a new account in my name only. It wasn't much, about $15,000, but it was something. I also contacted a lawyer about freezing Renee's access to any loan secured against assets I co-owned. The second step was to gather more evidence. I installed a small recording device in Renee's car and another in her purse. Both were completely legal, since we were married and they were in shared spaces. The third step was the most important. I was going to turn Eric and Caro against each other. I started with Eric. On Friday evening, I called him and suggested we grab a beer at Flanagan's, just the two of us. He agreed, probably thinking it was a good opportunity to gauge my suspicions. You seem different lately, he said after we'd ordered our drinks. Everything okay at home? Actually, no. Renee's been acting strange, secretive. I'm starting to wonder if there's someone else. Eric's face went pale. What makes you think that? Little things. She's always on her phone. She's been dressing up more and she's spending money we don't have. Yesterday, I found a receipt for a hotel room. The Marriott downtown. Maybe it was for a client meeting or something. Maybe. But Eric, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Is Renee seeing someone? Because if she is, I'd rather hear it from my best friend than find out some other way. Eric stared into his beer for a long moment. When he looked up, his expression was tortured. Nick, I don't know how to tell you this. Just tell me. She is seeing someone. But it's not what you think. What do you mean? It's me, Nick. Renee and we're in love. I let my face show shock and hurt, even though I'd been expecting this confession. You? My best friend? I know how it sounds, but it just happened. We were spending time together because of the business expansion, and one thing led to another. We tried to fight it, but the feelings were too strong. How long? 3 months, and Nick, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I stood up abruptly, knocking over my beer. 25 years of friendship, Eric. 25 years. Nick, wait. But I was already walking toward the door. Behind me, I heard Lana's voice. Eric Sloan, you're lower than dirt. The performance was perfect. By tomorrow, everyone in the neighborhood would know that Eric had confessed to sleeping with my wife. But I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I called Dr. Caro's office and made an appointment for a consultation. I used a fake name and paid cash, claiming I was interested in cosmetic surgery, but wanted to keep it confidential. Dr. Matt Caro was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, handsome, silver-haired, and arrogant. His office was decorated with expensive art and medical degrees from prestigious universities. What kind of procedure are you interested in, Mr. Johnson? He asked using the fake name I'd given. Actually, I'm not here about surgery. I'm here about my wife. His expression didn't change, but I caught a slight tensing around his eyes. I'm not sure I understand. My wife is Renee Halperin. I know you've been sleeping with her. Now his face went white. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I have photos, emails, hotel receipts. I know everything. Caro stood up, his professional composure cracking. What do you want? Information. I know Renee's been telling you she's leaving me for Eric Sloan, but what you don't know is that Eric thinks he's the only one she's sleeping with. That's impossible. I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken the night before. Eric leaving Renee's salon after hours, looking like a man who'd just gotten lucky. She's playing both of you, I said. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Caro sank back into his chair, his arrogance replaced by confusion and anger. I don't believe you. Then ask her, but be careful how you do it. Because if Eric finds out about you, this whole thing falls apart. And from what I hear, you can't afford for that to happen. I left him sitting there, staring at the photo on my phone. Phase 2 of my plan was in motion. That evening, Renee came home in an unusually good mood. She was humming again, and she'd brought takeout from our favorite Chinese restaurant. What's the occasion? I asked. Can't a wife surprise her husband with dinner? Of course, but you seem excited about something. She smiled secretively. Maybe I am. Maybe things are about to change for the better. Change how? You'll see, soon. We ate dinner while she chattered about the salon and her plans for expansion. She didn't mention Eric or her mysterious investor, but I could tell she was building up to something. Finally, over fortune cookies, she took my hand across the table. Nick, we need to talk. About what? About us, about our marriage, about the future. Here it comes, I thought. The big confession, the request for a divorce, the beginning of her plan to take everything I'd worked for. I'm listening, I said. I think we should take a break, a separation, just for a few months, while I figure some things out. What kind of things? Personal things, business things. I need some space to think about what I really want. And what about what I want? I know this is hard, but I think it's best for both of us. You could move in with your mother temporarily, and I could stay here and focus on the salon. So that was her plan. Get me out of the house, establish residency, and then file for divorce on favorable terms. What brought this on? I asked. We haven't been happy for a long time, Nick. We both know that. Maybe it's time to admit it and do something about it. Have you been talking to someone about this? A counselor, maybe, or a friend? For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw guilt flash across her face. I've been talking to Eric. He thinks we should try to work things out, but he also thinks some time apart might help. Eric said that? He's been a really good friend to both of us through this difficult time. I almost laughed out loud. Eric thought he was positioning himself to move in once I moved out. Caro thought he was financing Renee's independence so they could be together. And Renee thought she was manipulating both of them while keeping her options open. I need to think about it, I said. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Nick, I hope you'll consider what's best for both of us. That night, lying in bed next to my cheating wife, I listened to the recordings from her purse. What I heard confirmed everything I'd suspected. A phone call with Eric. Just be patient. Once Nick moves out, we can be together openly. I just need a few more weeks to get everything in order. A phone call with Caro. The separation is just temporary. Once the divorce is final and I have access to all the assets, we can start our new life together. And most damning of all, a call with someone she referred to as Julian, her lawyer cousin who'd been helping her hide assets and plan her exit strategy. Everything's in place, she told Julian. The business loans are secured, the new account is set up, and Nick doesn't suspect anything. Once he moves out, I can file for divorce and claim he abandoned the marriage. With his history of depression after his father died, it should be easy to paint him as unstable. My history of depression. She was planning to use my grief over my father's death against me in court. That's when I knew she deserved everything that was coming to her. The next morning, while Renee was at work, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. I called Eric and told him I'd decided to move out, that I couldn't handle the thought of fighting for a marriage that was already over. "I'm sorry it came to this," he said, but I could hear the relief in his voice. "Just promise me one thing, Eric. Promise me you'll take care of her." "I will, Nick. I swear I will." Then I called Dr. Caro's office and left a message. "Tell the doctor that Mr. Johnson called. The situation we discussed has been resolved. He'll know what that means." Finally, I called John Kellerman and told him to prepare a complete dossier of everything we'd discovered. Photos, recordings, financial records, everything. What's